So how do you deal with someone who is biased about something? People always make generalizations and assumptions about a wide range of things based on just one or two incidents. Today, I'm going to share with you 3 tips on how you can deal with biased people. Super powerful stuff that will allow you to make them see things your way, so that not only can you close sales, you can negotiate better, you can also create powerful transformational questions in their mind so that they can ultimately reach their potential and change their lives. Man, Indian food is so spicy. She's always getting ill. Foreigners are so stupid. He will never agree to see things my way. These are the typical questions or typical statements that people make based on one incident. This is famously known as the convincer strategy that every single person uses, even you and even I. We use this to not only build our belief system, but we also use it to make sense of the world around us. Imagine you're in a foreign country, let's say India, although it's not foreign to me. So let's say you're in India. This is your first time here. You're a foreigner visiting the country. What do? Okay, you want to come in and try some food. Now let's say on the back of that person's mind, they have something going on like, I've heard that Indian food is spicy. Now let's say that they try some food here. And what happens? The first thing that they try turns out to be slightly spicy, and then immediately they make these amazing statements that all Indian food is spicy based on one incident. This convincer strategy is super powerful because it's coming from one situation. Think of all of the situations in your own life where this happens. Think about it. We make sweeping assumptions and generalizations all the time based on one or two incidents. This is so important to recognize because this is costing us relationships, costing us money, costing us business deals, costing us problems with students in school and a whole bunch of other things. Recognize that biased opinions, they do not come from certainty. They are vocalized in a form of certainty, but they do not form fact. And that's very, very important to consider. Biased people come from their own point of view with their own belief system that is usually made from one or two incidents. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about one or two things. Remember that you and I, we do it all the time. And the reality is that it's extremely hard to change a biased person. There you go. It's not hard to do it, is it? Just by that one statement, immediately I have created another bias. Biases happen all the time, and it's important to be mindful of what we're doing, and at the same time know that if we are going to use these 3 tips effectively, we need to recognize what are these situations under which we are creating a bias, what is belief in itself, and how can we actually improve the situation. All of this is vital to consider. Keeping that in mind, remember that any person who is biased, they are coming from one perspective, and that is their own. That's right, they're always coming from their own perspective. Someone who tastes Indian foods and says, oh my god, all Indian food is spicy. That's their opinion. But in reality, is it true? Because if we look at the wider spectrum of all of India, there is a diverse range of food. There is also a lot of food that is not spicy, and there are a lot of people who do not eat spicy food. So there you go. The bias is immediately broken. And if you actually see the large majority of foreigners or people who visit India for the first time, when they try all of the food, they do taste a lot of variety. They do find a lot of stuff that isn't spicy. So the bias, when tested, let me repeat that. The bias, when tested, can be broken. So it's up to you and up to the people who recognize this information as important, that if we recognize a bias as something that can be questioned and something that can be changed, then we can overcome their opinion. So keeping that in mind, know that they need to consider two other important opinions. One is the opinion of you, your own opinion, and the opinion with regard to the entire overall situation as well. So keeping the actual general worldly perspective in mind, your perspective, and then their perspective. All of this is vital to consider. Keep all three of these in mind so that you don't create a bias of your own. And remember, this is very powerful stuff, because with this, you can also influence other people. You can create problems for other people. So use these three tips wisely. Know that they are very powerful, and if misused, you can spoil someone's life at the same time, just like someone who is creating a bias in the first place. So anyway, here we go. Here are the three tips to help deal with biased people that will allow you to make more money, improve your relationships, and make people see things your way. Number one, break their absolutism. You heard me right. Break their absolutism. Now, what are the general statements that someone might make when they look at a biased opinion? Number one, she's always ill. Foreigners are stupid. He is never going to agree with me. So we have three statements here that are sweeping generalizations based on probably one situation. Now we want to break their absolutism and make them see things the way they actually are. How do we do this? We ask them questions. You need to ask them questions that allow them to challenge the statement that they just made. So, let's reconsider this. Remember, it's not just asking these questions, it's the way you ask them. It's not how you ask the questions, what the words that are in there, but how you ask it. So, let's look at the same statements again. Indian food is spicy. All Indian food is spicy? Foreigners are stupid. All foreigners are stupid? He'll never agree with me. He'll never agree with you? She's always sick. She's always sick? You see, just the way you vocalize it back to them and make it seem a little sarcastic, but at the same time a lot more logical. Just by putting it back across like that, you immediately make them see, okay, that's not a finite perspective that I am putting forth. So what happens? They will typically justify it. They will say things like, oh well, there were a couple of times when this girl felt sick. Or they may say that, oh, I went to India and I tried this one type of food and it was so spicy. Or it may be something like, all foreigners are stupid. So they may say that, oh, there was this one guy whom I spoke to. He spoke in broken English, but he couldn't really give me directions to where I wanted to go. And then this person, he'll never agree with me. He'll never agree with you. Well, there was this one time where he acted so difficult and he never wanted to see things my way. My professor did not allow me to change the particular project the way I wanted to do it. Immediately they try to justify and then they try to make things look really flowery, because now they have put themselves into a compromising position by saying a biased statement to you. They have immediately framed it to make it look absolute, that it is finite the way it is. It's up to you, just by the way I'm saying it, to question them and make them question themselves about what they just said. Okay, now they've justified it by making that statement. Again, you want to quantify it. Quantifying works beautifully. And how do you do that? You ask them how many, how often, every single time, and this is really powerful for it. Okay, so how many times has she fallen sick? How many times has your professor not allowed you to do things your way? How many foreigners did you meet on your trip that were actually stupid? How many types of Indian food did you try that were actually spicy? And immediately you see that you are one by one picking away at their excuses. someone who is trying to lose weight, let's face it, I'm never going to lose weight, I do not have the potential to do it. Use the same strategies. Break their absolutism and ultimately frame it in a way that they see things your way. And how do you do that? You do this one very simple thing. You actually frame a new question to make it look like a completely new perspective. So you would want to break out of the bias and now frame it in a completely new way. Now this takes skill, this one takes a little bit of talent on your part, and you have to see how you can word your sentence accordingly. Let me give it a try. Now let's say the same thing they've justified regarding the girl who is always falling sick. And now what do you want to do? You want to phrase it like this. You said, how many times has she actually fallen sick? Well, maybe you caught her at a bad time, but based on what you said, I don't really think that she is someone who always falls sick. And then what do they say? You're right. So you tried a couple of types of Indian food that was spicy, but I've spoken to quite a few people who seem to know what they're talking about on their travels, and they've tried a lot of different kinds of food in India that weren't spicy. What do you have to say about that? And the last one, of course, regarding foreigners being stupid. Well, you may have run into one of those guys who maybe didn't know how to convey information as effectively as he would have liked. But remember that all he was trying to do was help you and give you directions. So maybe you should have looked at talking to someone else. Maybe you wouldn't have, that would have changed your perspective, like talking to doctors, engineers, or someone else from the educated class of that country. Again, now with this perspective, now they have to challenge the exact framework that they have created, and now they have to see things your way. Very, very powerful, and used effectively, you can break anyone's belief system, any absolute statements that they make, and actually make them see things your way. Very powerful. Now, if this doesn't work, tip number 2 works beautifully, and it's called the magic question. How do you ask them the magic question? Well, you put it forth like this. What would have to happen for you to see it differently? Can you consider things differently than the way you see them right now? Super powerful statement or question that you can make to them. If you ask them this question effectively, phrase it exactly the way I said it, it's going to work magic for you. And usually they will give you a reply for this, and you want to follow it up with this. So what would it take for you to see things happen like that? Or what would have to happen for you to see things from another perspective? Or what would be the resources or the skills or the objectivity that you would have to consider in order to see things this way? Amazing once you lay it out like this. So use the magic question, frame it accordingly. Remember, it's going to be a conversation, and you will have people replying back to you whenever you ask them these questions, because you're not only questioning their statement, but you're also questioning their belief at the same time. So they are going to retort, and you need to be prepared for that. So handle it not aggressively, but assert yourself whenever required. Which moves us into tip number 3. Change places with them. Now remember, this is very important if you are going to close the sale, if you want them to see the importance of something and actually change their entire framework. And how do you do that? You need to change places with them. They have a certain ideology right now. Now you want them to see things your way. How do you do this? Simple. Now let's say that they say, I want Z, and Z is like this. Okay? You reply in this fashion. I see where you're coming from. I understand that you see Z a certain way. However, what would it take for us to consider X and Y so that we can deal with this better? Now, give them a pause after that. Now, you've set the framework for someone to see something in a different way. Not just a different way, but see it your way. Okay, now that you have created that gap, you move into the final thing. And how do you do that? Once the pause is done, before they can actually reply, you want to say, so now that I've mentioned that X and Y needs to be like this, how can we put the framework together so that we can see things working both ways? So that Z is taken into consideration, X and Y are taken into consideration, and ultimately the answer is gained, so that we can suit each other on the current situation. Again, we have now framed the overall perspective to make someone else see things our way. It's a very subtle strategy to do all of this stuff, but essentially, if it's going to become a power game, if you need to get aggressive, it's not going to work. Asking these questions, asking strategic questions is the most powerful way. So someone with a weight loss issue rather, when they say that I will never lose weight, I can never exercise, I don't have the time, again, make them go through all of the steps so that you ultimately reach that point where you need to negotiate past certain things and make them see things your way. Okay, now I understood that you have the time to exercise, but you haven't just got to it. That's their perspective. Now, what's your perspective? I can see that you have not gotten to exercising, but now you seem to have the time to exercise. So can we work around a certain time frame where you can start exercising so that you can actually lose weight and reach your goals? So that I as a trainer can help you get from where you are right now, point A, to point B, to achieve that amazing body that you want so badly. Immediately you have won the conversation there, because not only are you not coming off in a very aggressive, very intimidating approach, but you are looking at it from their perspective again, acknowledging it, and at the same time providing yours. When you do it like this, they cannot help but see things your way. They cannot help but see things your way. Or at best, they will have to agree with you and ultimately will not enforce their opinion on someone else anymore. The most important skill with regard to dealing with biased people is asserting yourself. Asserting yourself so that not only can you challenge sometimes a myth or a belief of someone else, but at the same time, you want them to see things your way. That's the most important thing. A super powerful strategy that needs to be used effectively, and if misused can create a lot of problems. That's very important to consider. So use the strategy, use all three of these tips very, very safely. Use them in the right context, and make sure that you do not manipulate people using all of this, because it's just as bad as a biased person might be in some situations. You want to make sure that that freedom of thought is there. The belief system that we are gifted while growing up, whatever it may be, good or bad, it's still a very powerful thing. So whenever you are trying to change someone's opinion or making them look at things differently, know that you have a lot of power in your hand and you want to use it safely and keep them in mind all the time. Having said that, if you found this video useful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Comment down below. Tell me what you're going to do with these 3 tips. Where are you going to use them? Are you going to use them in school? Are you going to use them in business, at work, at home, negotiating relationships with your wife or your husband? Let me know down in the comment section below. I am dedicated to making your 2019 awesome, and of course changing your life and making it better using a wide range of psychological techniques. That's my goal. On this channel, we do that through psychology and help you become the best version of yourself. Have you performing like a champion in every single area of your life. Why do we do this? Well, we do it because we can, because we are powerful, and that's my goal for you. We're going to do it, empower your mind and empower your life. That's my goal for you. If this is your first time here, If I haven't convinced you enough, and if I haven't made you biased to the fact that you need to subscribe right now and turn on those bell notifications so that you never miss another video, well, check out all of the other videos that I have for you so that you can form your own opinion and enjoy the content that I'm putting out for you. This is Vikram signing off, and I will see you in the next session.